Hello, Logan here again. We're back for another review. This time we're reviewing Prey from 2017. I'm joined by Apps. How you doing?
All good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. Stunned that we're sitting here. When you went, I want to review Prey, I went, huh? A little bit like 13 years too late, aren't we?
About that, yeah. I mean, there's depending on which version, but this is not the original 2017. So a lot of people are saying already in the comments, they said, are you going to sort your mics out for the next set of reviews? And I was like, well, cocked up the old Smash Brothers one with that shitty webcam mic, left that running. So this should sound better.
I'm supposed to be sound engineer and that ain't even getting picked up, so it's got to be clear.
It's true, actually. So that's, yeah, that'll go in the file. But
I am recording the audio, so I say recording the audio. My audio is coming out of the speakers on my laptop, so everything sounds like tinny shit anyway.
You did say that, but then when I swapped the mic over, you said that does sound better.
Yeah, side by side. Side by side, it does. Like one after the other, you go, well. But in the cold, in an isolated version of it, first up, without hearing the difference, you don't really know.
No, and to be honest, all we've ever said was the standard is just to make sure it's passable. It hasn't got to be top quality. It's just got to be, you can hear it. It's not
passable audio to go with passable content.
Yeah, I mean, I think Piper pushed it to its limit one time on a podcast where it sounded like he was underwater most of it. I don't know what he was using, and he kept fucking scratching his mic. We have some
diabolical mics. So it's him, and then you get Hall. Sometimes he records it off his iPhone headphones.
Yeah.
Other phones are available, by the way. And it just sounds like absolute garbage.
Yeah.
It's the worst quality audio. And I just think, how's that getting passed off? How's that allowed at this level?
The fact is, no one's ever complained because no one's probably listening, but that's, until the complaints come in, we'll keep this low standard, and then if we make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Because if that mattered, that would have been a bit of a disaster, because that was a biggie as well.
I think I'm the only one other than you that actually bought a proper podcast mic.
Yeah, I think so. Because it wasn't expensive, was it? This one, it's what I've had this since at least 2014.
Yeah.
So we're 2019. I've had it a long time. I think it sounds fine.
Yeah, it sounds good. It's good sound quality. Yeah. If I wanted to stream, I might use this mic, but I don't, so I won't.
Well, yeah, this is what I use. I use this mic, and it's good for that. I think because it's not attached to my head, it's like a desk. It's got its own stand, and you just plonk it on the desk. Is that it's not, if you kind of have to set it up and have it nearby you on the stream for it to pick it up properly. So
most of the top streamers have got that anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
So
this room's worse though, because it's wooden. Well, not wooden, but it's laminate flooring, and it's a bit echoey. When I was in the old place, it was carpeted, so I noticed immediately when I moved that the sound dipped a bit, and I thought, well, nothing I can do about that. And Smash Brothers Ultimate was probably some of the worst audio that I've had, because Skype decided that the webcam mic would be the best way to be having the audio go through. I don't know why it did that. And
all these times that I say to you, often the ongoing saga since we've been doing this is we record them over Skype, and every time I log on, for some peculiar reason, I had the same issue of getting my audio to come out of my laptop and the audio to go through my USB mic. And every fucking time, despite saving it, it would just go back to these weird settings where you just couldn't hear anything, and you couldn't hear me, and it was just bizarre. So Skype does have history of doing this. It's fucking garbage, honestly.
I think there's better ways to do it, but we're in a situation where some people do use their phones and sound okay. So in the absence of a computer, I think Skype's generally, the app works okay, and depending on their mic they plug in, whether they've even got it plugged in properly, then it actually can do a job just having the conversation through the phone. But we are where we are. It's worked for all these years, so I've just got to be a bit more thorough in the testing, and you've got to turn those ears on.
Yeah, now I know that it could occur. I'll listen out for it, but we'll see. Right, back to the review at hand then.
Yes.
Prey. What are your... Let's get your cards on the table.
Yeah.
I say the original, but whatever that was in 2000 and whatever it was.
Yeah, so Prey, this is 2017. I guess this Prey is a bit of a... It's not really a reboot, it's more of a reimagining, or it's more of, we've got the name Prey, we're just going to kind of do our own thing with it. It's sci-fi, which is about the only link it has to the original Prey. I've not played OG Prey, so this is just from research really, but that was a 2006 game, same name, was developed by Human Head Studios, and as I said, I haven't played that 2006 version, but it was received quite well back in the day. Never really on my radar. I don't know whether I didn't have a PC at that time really. I think it was primarily a PC type game, but so I didn't really have much history with the original, so 2006 one, not really familiar with it at all. I do have a lot of history though with Bethesda Softworks, who published Prey, and Arkane Studios are the developers. So Bethesda publish it, Arkane are the developers. So let's address Bethesda first. They have their own development studio, which is well and truly on the rocks after Fallout 76. That has done some serious damage to that studio, in my view, and their pedigree. You know, they've done Fallout 3. They were responsible for Skyrim, and Fallout 76 is what comes out. So it's weird that their own studio, Bethesda's own sort of first party studio, is falling from grace almost in parallel with BioWare, who have done Andromeda and then Anthem. But let's put their development studio, to one side, because if you actually look at their publishing arm, which is where they finance and help other developers get the games out and publish them, so they take a cut of it, obviously. They've reeled out some absolute crackers. They haven't always sold well. That's the worry with these sort of their publishing arm, is that they don't actually tend to sell that well. But the quality of the game, they're struggling to sell.
They're not that good at publishing. The game's good, but
yeah, they can't make a game which sells loads and is shit. So they can do that, but they can't get the good games that they don't make to resonate.
You literally couldn't write it.
It's something not right there. I mean, I think fortunately they're a private company.
Yeah.
I mean, if they wasn't, I would struggle to see. They would be struggling at the moment, I think, because, like I said, they've had some really good games that have ironically come from outside of their main development studio and from other areas. Things like Rage. We've got Rage 2 coming.
Yeah,
it's probably already out by the time this drops. In fact, so that's one little thing there. You got Rage 2 there, Dishonored and Dishonored 2. Doom was rebooted a few years ago. That was received really well. Evil Within, which I liked, survival horror, that was good. Wolfenstein, they've done 2 of those.
Yeah.
I think Youngblood is coming out later this year. And the only one on that list I haven't played is Rage. But I will be looking at Rage 2, and I may already have it, who knows, by the time that you guys listen to this. But publishing-wise, Bethesda Softworks are doing some really good stuff in terms of the quality of the work. They're getting talented studios to work on their projects, and Arkane is one of those. And Arkane, who developed Prey, also developed Dishonored and Dishonored 2. And I enjoyed both of them, and this Prey is now sort of like the Arkane hat-trick for me. So there you go. I've played 3 of their games and perhaps enjoyed all of them. Final note on the cards on the table: I played this on the PC, Master Race Jobby.
It's unusual for you, making a good use of that PC for once.
Yeah, I mean, usually it's things like Jurassic World, or I don't know. I've just bought Frostpunk, which is like a city building sim or like a society sim, like those sort of games that I always say are better with mouse and keyboard. I'll play those on the PC, but things like this I haven't previously, so it was an interesting experiment. The last time I tried it was Deus Ex: Mankind Divided.
So, Prey. What's the story? I mean, I genuinely have no idea. This game's just not on my radar at all. So what's it offering?
So if you look at Prey, it looks like it's categorised almost as a first-person shooter.
Right.
But some people might label it an immersive sim. So for those that aren't familiar with this sort of subgenre, it basically emphasises player choice. Typically gives you multiple ways to tackle scenarios. Usually incorporates elements from multiple genres. So not just shooting, but also platforming, stealth, role-playing elements. And I think Prey falls into that category as like an immersive sim from the first-person perspective. You do shoot guns, but it's not Call of Duty, it's not Battlefield, it's not that at all. It's a lot more varied than that. So that's the kind of category and type of game it is, and later on we can talk about some more specifics. But story-wise, it's set in like an alternate timeline. So in this timeline, JFK survives his assassination attempt in '63, and what that causes is an acceleration in space programs and a space race. And by the time we get to the game, which is set in 2032, we have habitable space stations, so people can live on these space stations, and one of those is called Talos I, and that's where you, as Morgan, or Morgan U is their full name, kick off the game, and you're on this space station. Peace doesn't last too long, as before you know it, there's been an alien attack. Species is called Typhon, and your task is basically to get off the station. Like, pretty classic setup. And as the story goes on, you find out a bit more about what's been going on at the station and bits and pieces like that. So that's the setup for it.
So, is there an element of horror?
Yeah, I'd say there definitely is, especially early on when you're not powerful, because you're vulnerable, and that's where you breed a little bit of horror. And if you don't like, I don't like spiders, but it's only one type. But the main Typhon enemy, they're called mimics. I'll go into what they are later on, but they sort of run like spiders, and they've got legs. They're black, and they're not nice looking. But there's definitely elements of, I wouldn't say it tries to jump scare you, purposefully with music cues and things like that, like saying Evil Within would, and like enemy placement, but you do have dread for it because especially at the beginning, you're very underpowered. You've just got a wrench, so it's kind of like, right, I can't really afford to be seen here or caught, otherwise I'm going to get slaughtered. So let me try and stealth round. Right.
So it's not encouraging you to go and just batter everything with a wrench.
You can. I did do that after a while, but I guess going back to the fact that it's an immersive sim. It's player agency. It's what you think's best in that situation, and the game is open enough to allow you to do both those options and maybe a third option.
Right, interesting.
Yeah.
So, presentation and performance. In my head, I don't know why, but I've got, especially as you played it on PC, this very polished looking. Graphically amazing game. Does it not really fall into that? There sounds like there's a bit of doubt. Am I miles wide of the mark?
You fall into that trap where everyone just assumes that if it's on PC, it will look ridiculous. It doesn't. It doesn't. The PC can't make the game look as, it's got a ceiling, and the ceiling is okay at the end of the day. It's funny because I play the console, I play the PlayStation 4 Pro or the Xbox One X now and again, or mostly, and it's funny, I've got this gaming PC here, which has probably it's probably actually not as powerful as those now, but for forever, this was the most powerful thing I owned. Right. But the 4K stuff and the 4K stuff on the X and the PS4 Pro just tends to look a little bit better. And what I've basically decided to do with this PC setup is not go down a 4K route, not go down a 1440p route, go for like a frames per second. So if I'm playing something on the PC, I want it to be buttery smooth, which is something that sometimes on the consoles you can't get because they focus so much on getting 4K assets in, especially with the new consoles. So that's what I've gone for. And in this case, I don't think I could have played it in 4K or 8K. It's okay. It will not blow your mind away. The character models look fine. They move a little bit stiff, and facial animations aren't the best. But the best thing about the game is the environment. So Talos I is fleshed out and looks like a beautiful space station, and you can have a peek outside the windows and see, like, I think it's the moon you're nearby. I can't remember now what planet it is. It looks like the moon anyway. You get an excellent view of that. And then the enemy design's pretty good. So yeah, it's the human side of things. Probably the worst bit about it is that when you meet other humans, they look just okay. So don't roll into Prey expecting visuals that are going to blow your back doors off. They won't. They're serviceable, and I think that's what we always look for here at Dimp Digital, is something that's serviceable. It doesn't have to be the best in class. But I guess a positive note is I had no frame rate issues, thank God, because that's what I want this thing to do with me, or any stability problems, which for some reason I call out more when I play it on PC, because I just don't trust the PC. I'm more fearful of something going wrong on the Master Race. I may have just revoked my membership of the Master Race by saying that. People are like, what are you saying? No, they're much more stable, but I've always just been that little bit more apprehensive using a PC.
I've always got this perception that things are less optimized for PC for some reason. That's my constant thought. But
I think basically those that put the effort in can make it more optimized. Those that don't, it might not be as optimized, because the advantage of the consoles is they know there's two specs for each they're going to write to, and that's it. Whereas with a PC, you've got, how many combinations have you got? Probably hundreds, depending on what GPU you've got, what CPU you've got, how much RAM you've got, what display you've got. There's all that stuff that you can never write to the metal on a PC, which is typically why, historically, if you look at like the PlayStation exclusives and Xbox historically, back in the day, they always looked much better than like the third party stuff, because they would just make it for one console. When you focus your efforts, I think they can pluck a lot more power out of stuff that isn't deemed to be that powerful. But yeah, it's just I didn't have any stability issues, so I was pleased. But it's something that I always worry about when I start up a game on PC and haven't saved for a while, and I think, oh fuck, I haven't saved for 40 minutes, please don't crash. But fortunately this game makes it easy, as most PC games do, with a quick save. Just hit F5 and then you can save straight away.
Lovely. Did you do the mirror test? Well,
there ain't no mirrors, they're all clouded out. They look like they've been mucked over, so they've not bothered with that.
It's always that's become the test for
no working mirrors in Prey. I'll tell you what I did see. This is a game that might come down the pipe at some point. I think Hitman 2's they've got mirrors that fully work, and Hitman the old new one, if that makes sense. Had them as well. In Hitman 2, I read they've now introduced the fact that characters can see your reflection in the mirror. So if they're standing by the mirror getting ready and you walk behind them, they'll spot you, so you can't silently kill them. So if you want mirrors, Hitman 2, but then it's stealth, which you don't like.
I do not like stealth at all. It stresses me out.
I can see that.
So, design and progression of the game. By the sounds of it, it sounds pretty linear. Is that fair?
No.
How am I misjudging this game so wildly?
As I mentioned earlier, it's an immersive sim, and I guess Prey will live and die by the design of the game being good. And fortunately, this is the most interesting part of Prey, really. This is where the nuts and bolts of it are. As it's set on a space station, each area or function of the station is separated by a loading screen, so that can break the flow a little bit. But these functions are pretty big and allow free exploration through, and have multiple paths, sections, and interesting things for you to discover if you do a bit more exploration. You've got like an overarching main mission, but there's also a great deal of side missions there as well. So they're optional, and they'll give you rewards and bits and pieces. So that's always good to delve into, but you don't have to. There's also survivors that are scattered about, so don't be surprised if you bump into them and maybe receive an additional quest. You've got classic things like audio logs that give you a bit more, narrative fleshing out of the station, what happened in the latter parts of the station before the attack.
Rich backstory.
Yeah, exactly. It's all there if people want to find it, and they might end up triggering a side quest. So the audio log might say, "Oh, there's a weapons cache hidden here," and then you might go out there to find it. But yeah, like you said, it's rich backstory purely to flesh out the world and give you some insight into life before the alien attack. But I guess the biggest thing that gives Prey its uniqueness is, and what it leans in on, is how you gain new abilities and upgrade Morgan. So Morgan is your character's name. You can choose to be male or female at the start. Your name doesn't change. But the space station itself has developed a technology known as neuromods. And what neuromods essentially in the game allow humans to do is instantly pick up new skills or talents. So, for example, if there's a door you come across that's locked and that requires a password or a key card to access, you've got 4 options really on how you tackle this. One is that you just bin off the door, go and do something else. You walk away and think, I'm not interested in what's in that door. Doesn't matter. Number 2 is that you find the password or the key card and use that to unlock the door. So you might find the key card on a corpse or from a person or wherever. The password you might find on someone's PC. If you look hard enough in that, you can view logs and stuff in that. And number 3 is that you find another way into the room. So there actually might be a vent somewhere high up that you didn't see, and if you plan your route enough, you might have to get in through that way. And then number 4 is that you hack your way into the room, so you force and brute force the password and get in that way. And what neuromods allow you to do is to gain skills like hacking. So Morgan was not a hacker in their previous life, but installing a neuromod is basically like installing a skill to your character at that time. So you can install the neuromod, and from that moment on you can start hacking. And there's loads of different skills that you can unlock, either for combat, for support, like engineering, maybe like repairing things, increasing your health, harvesting resources. That's another part of the game, is harvesting those. And also, I guess the kicker is that eventually you can access the Typhon ability, so the alien abilities. So you can start installing alien skills and really mix up the gameplay. So the best example of this is the mimics, which I mentioned were a little bit like spiders earlier. Yeah. So the way they work is there's various types of different aliens that you'll encounter. Some might have mind control abilities, some can fire electric or cloak and all that stuff. But the best ones are definitely the mimics. So they're the spider-like creatures that their abilities, they can take the form of any object in the game.
I was going to say is mimic, and
that's it. So you might go to pick up a med kit one time, and it turns out to be one of those little fuckers, and it frightens the life out of you. And you go, "Caw!" and it fucking sprawls up and hits you and runs off, and you think, "Bloody hell!"
I find that really stressful.
Well, they're all game. That's the thing. And you say stressful. I found it interesting because you didn't really know where they were, and you let your guard down all the time because you can't keep bashing everything with a fucking stick before you pick it up in case it's one of them, as you'll drive yourself insane. But and I guess when you get the chance to incorporate their abilities, the mimic is the pole position one you want. So we talk about trying to access the room that was locked, and there might be a gap somewhere, like a small little voice gap, like a little where people were talking. There might be I could go to post office, there's a screen up, and there's a little gap where you slide the documents through. That might be there, and you can take the form of a cup, which is obviously a lot smaller, roll into the room through that gap. So that's another way you can approach unlocking the door or getting into the room. And that's just a real one example of very many that you can use. If you don't want to engage in combat, you can mimic something to sneak by in. So it's the options that Prey gives you. That's its unique selling point. I can feel the Dishonored influence here, and it translates really well into a space setting with aliens and other scenarios. And, if you want to, you can play Prey as a stock first-person shooter, blast the critters into dust, and then, mainline the story and do it that way. Or you can take a different approach, sneak around, maybe avoid combat, or take them out quietly. Prey lets you do it, and those who enjoy experimenting are going to have the best moments in Prey.
Those with an imagination, I like to really push the game a little bit, I guess, rather than me that probably pick it up and, as you said, just try and blast them all.
Yeah, I mean, you can still do that, but the
takes away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, the controls and how the game feels. Does it feel? I mean, you said it's a 2017 game, so it's best part of probably 2 years old at least. Really, does it feel dated?
No, I wouldn't say so. And I mentioned that I'd played Mankind Divided on PC. That's the last sort of game like this I can remember playing, and I was struggling to play on mouse and keyboards, and eventually I went to a controller about 25% through. So maybe those controls weren't that good for me on mouse and keyboard. I went to a controller and I was fine. With Prey, I played the whole lot with mouse and keyboards and they weren't an issue at all. So control-wise and mechanical-wise, it's a thumbs up. Left mouse fires your primary, right mouse is used to initiate any Typhon abilities you have selected, and it works well. And you've got things like they call it a PSI gauge, which allows you, it's like basically a meter of how much you can use those alien abilities for. So you want to keep that topped up by finding stuff, keeping ammo, health, and your suit topped up as well. Search the environment, find resources, patch yourself up when you need to. That's all sort of part of the cycle as well. I guess one of the other things in terms of the mechanics that you've got in there is around the resource gathering, is that you come across these machines called recyclers and fabricators. Now, the recycler you can use to dump all your junk in it, and what it will do is it will spit out materials that you can use in the fabricator to craft weapons, ammos, neuromods, healing items, and bits and pieces like that. So, yeah, it's quite in depth. It's definitely got some depth to it in terms of the gameplay, and no real complaints from that side of things.
The real Minecraft story mode.
Well, yeah, that's what they want to be doing. That's why they went out of business.
So is there any AOB that you want to talk about on Prey that we haven't covered?
I guess there are problems with it. I've spoken quite highly of how it works there. I mentioned the visuals aren't amazing, and that there's loading screens between some of the areas that can break the flow. But I guess the two things that bugged me a lot was the last third of the game was a bit of a grind. Like it felt artificial in terms of its narrative direction and also what it's asking you to do. At that point, it felt like to me there's a lot of running back and forth between these areas. So it's gone from this slow-paced game where you're exploring the environment and you're finding little secrets now and again to get to point A to point B where you've already been a dozen times. Get there, get back, and it's just like that's not my style at that point. I'd fallen into this kind of system of taking things quite slowly, and I don't know. I think it was there to pad out the game. It's a reasonably long game. Like, it took me nearly 20 hours to do. Right. So it's not short. So it wasn't necessary. It wasn't like it was running at 6 hours like The Order, and you're like, all right, have they fucking sold this off? So that was annoying, and I have a bit of a syndrome for that when I think I'm near the finishing line of a game, if it then chucks hurdles in my way that aren't fresh, it really bothers me. I've seen it. We saw what happened with Shadow of War, didn't we, when we reviewed that? Yeah. I got annoyed at the end game of that because at that time they had to do it 50 times or something stupid. It bothers the shit out of me when games do that, and this had an element of that in there, and it kind of annoyed me. And then I mentioned player agency, and I mentioned side quests, and there's branching stories and choices that do have consequence that you can do, but they cop out on one of the side quests, like big time.
So is it in terms of, obviously no spoilers, but in terms of the no consequence bit?
It's a false. What's it called? Is it a false herring? What do they call it? Red herring. Whatever it is. Right. They kind of flag it as a not a very appealing option. So I didn't do this the first run through. I thought I'm not going to go down that route because I don't want to go down there and do all that shit. I want to stay here and do the main campaign and do that. But then when I went back, I thought I'll go and do this. I'll find out what happens if you go down this route. And it was a cop out basically, and that annoyed me because that kind of broke it. Kind of broke the idea that the game had this really interesting side quest that you could do that could eventually lead you to the end of the game.
Yeah.
That wasn't there, and it annoyed me. I was like, why have you done that? Like, yeah, that wasn't. I can't say too much because it will spoil it. I can understand why it's set that way. But in a game that has so many options, and I just thought that would have been the icing on the cake, that there's this other separate route that you can go down, ignore all the main stuff, and you'll still get to an ending of the game. But it wasn't to be. And the final part is that this is unfair, really. When I first saw the game, I had some strong, like, Bioshock vibes going on. I thought this could be like a Bioshock game.
All right.
Which I liked and enjoyed, and it's not like Bioshock. It's its own thing, which I suppose is good, but it's not. It didn't have that level of atmosphere that I was expecting from it. Bioshock kind of oozes atmosphere, and this doesn't. So that was a little bit disappointing. But yeah, that's any other business sort of locked away.
So summarising that, it is not like Bioshock. No. Okay, well let's not beat around the bush on this game. What is your official grading?
So Prey has some great ideas, executed very well, but just kind of lacked the tightness and pacing to carry you through the game flawlessly and keep you engaged to the very end. And that's a pet peeve of mine. There's certainly stuff to be explored here in terms of how you play the game. Just need to tighten up on its structure, really, and how you get from the start to the end, and how that is for someone playing the game. So overall, that's my thoughts of it, and I think I'll give it a very fair 7 out of 10, bronze seal of approval.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Sounds about where it should be based on what you said.
Yeah,
can't really have too many complaints around that. It's hard to say really, because most games I've got some sort of fair idea of what I think they are and what they're like, and if there's anything wrong with them. And this generally is a massive black hole. I've no idea.
Linear, he called it.
Well, yeah, I've got it all wrong the whole way through. So there you go.
Is that down to? I don't know what that's down to. Is that down to them not marketing it properly back in the day, or just that he wasn't interested, so he didn't figure out what it was?
Well, the way that I'd say is that I always, normally if the games I don't want to play, but I still think sound interesting, I will watch playthroughs of.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, this just didn't appear on other people's radars either, evidently, particularly.
No, it didn't sell well. I mean, the reason I was mainly interested is because Arkane were doing it, and I've enjoyed their past work, and I like the freedom they typically give you, and like experimenting with the mechanics they've got. But I can see if you had no idea that Arkane were doing it, or you didn't obsess over knowing details about stuff that you haven't played, then it's difficult to actually get a gauge of what Prey is. But hopefully that's giving people an idea of what it is and what they can expect. Don't expect linear COD.
There you go. Dimp. Consumer advice.
Absolutely.
Right.
Strength.
We'll wrap it up then. Give people a bit of time back on these reviews. As always, thanks, Apps. And Cheers. To our huge listening audience, thanks for your time. And ta-da.
Ta-da.